every now and again when I'm being an asshole, I'm just like curmudgeon-y or something like that.
Mike, a lot of people ask me, and no doubt, and I've spoken to you about it, they ask you a lot of questions kind of very specific to their program, specific manipulations. They want to know specific reasons why you're doing certain things. And I find myself kind of a lot of the time looking towards the principles, and do you want to kind of delve into principles versus specific changes for an individual, that sort of area?
Yeah, totally. You know, like, so it comes basically, there's like a couple of lines of questions that we get that are all, of course, very well intentioned and are all very good questions. And some of them start to delve into, you know, can you, like, I'll talk about a particular principle and this will all be well and good, or I won't even talk about a principle and someone's like, you know, what kind of program should I run? Or I remember in Scientific Principles of Strength Training, the ebook, you know, we didn't put any sample programs, and some people were like, well, what about programs? And a related thing is, you know, I'll say, hey, I got this back pump from High Volume Work. Here's a picture. And they'll say, oh, what was your back workout? And like I've since started posting them with mild reservations. I'll tell you why I had reservations. Because I'll post the workout and people say, so, you know, why did you do the pull downs before you did the rows? Or, so I notice you have biceps on there. Shouldn't you be training them a bit earlier or later? Or do you prefer, this is the one that comes up the most, and I think is, I'll put it this way, the value of the question relative to the value of the information you're getting out of it is really off, is, so, you know, why and I've literally had this exact question, like I'll have barbell curls programmed, and they'll say, why barbells over dumbbells? So I'm actually just going to answer that question right now, quote unquote, here and forever, although I'm sure I'll have to repeat it many times, which is not a problem. The answer is variations.
Yeah.
So I would say that for every muscle group, on average, the number of exercises that meet sufficient requirements of overload, and also that are not maybe the best overload exercise for that. I really do think that per muscle group, gun to your head, there is best exercise. I do believe that, but it's best by like 2%. And after you train it for a while, because the novelty has worn off, because exercise staleness has developed, it is no longer the best. And then you probably have about 4 or 5 movements per body part that are close enough to being that good that you can sub in and they work better because of the fact that they're new. I can make the simplest analogy in the world. What's the best food? Well, like we can make a very general statement that's relatively true. Lobster, black caviar, and champagne. Like, there's never like, when you have those things, you're not like, you know, maybe you're French, you're like, this is bullshit, where's the really good food? I came here for cuisine. And like, but motherfucker, we gave you lobster and fucking caviar. You're like, that's the best. But, you know, every time, you know, so are you going to sit down next to a CEO at New York's best high-end restaurants? We're in London. Hi from London. London's one of London's best restaurants. You're going to look at everyone's plate. Can you imagine that? Walking in, looking at everyone's plate, and be like, they order like some kind of like Siberian ravioli because there's a guest chef from Russia, and it's like made with lamb and all this other shit. And you're like, so I noticed you ordered the ravioli. Why didn't you order the lobster, caviar, and a champagne combo? And they'd be like, or phrase another way. So what's better about the ravioli? Is it a better food? Yeah. I thought lobster was the best. You're like, okay, it is the best. But you can't eat the same shit all the time because eventually it's not the best. It just goes stale. And just the same way, physiologically, the same exercises no longer yield a hypertrophic benefit. And there's a manipulation. An exercise that's literally been covered by Dr. Mike Stone in many textbooks. It's called exercise deletion and replacement. You delete one exercise, replace it with another, and it's shown to elevate performance. That's why exercise variation is so important. So when people say, you know, why are you doing barbell curls versus dumbbells? there's no verses. Like, it's just, I did dumbbells for like 2 months. I plateaued on them. They no longer, basically, the volumes that would require to get the biceps stimulated are now over the MRV of the biceps. Like, I would just develop elbow pain trying to push volume that high and still get an effect. Like, you don't get a pump, you don't get a burn, you barely get sore at all or not at all, and you're not making strength progressions, but you're up to like 10 sets of biceps per workout. It's time for new exercise. And slightly different angles that it hits, a slightly different motor unit activation is a benefit because you've been really taxing one part of the muscle for a while. Now you switch gears where that part still gets taxed enough to be preserved, but you're taxing other motor units, other parts of the muscle, other different loadings and stretch parameters that now grow that part. So you grow this part, that part, this part, that part, but that's with different exercises. And also with different, we could expand this talk, and it would be with different rep ranges as well. I mean, there's a rep range variation. Like people say, so why are you doing 8s on this mesocycle versus 12s? Are 8s better? Probably not. Like, if I gun to my head, I think 8s are better because they offer probably the best trade-off of intensity and volume for maximum hypertrophy in any one mesocycle. But your training is not one mesocycle. It's 50 macrocycles until you get retired or just quit bodybuilding or something. You got to think long term. So are 8s the best? Sure, maybe. I haven't even thought it through. Maybe 10s are better. I don't know. I like 8s. They're good. But does that mean we never do 12s? Do you always do the best? If you're ever confused about the answer to this question, just think back. Do you always eat lobster and caviar? And if you were a billionaire and money wasn't an issue, would you eat lobster? Would you literally come to powerlifting meet with lobster, caviar, like Tupperware? Like, that's it. Be like, hey, I've got a long run for marathon. Lobster, caviar, it's the best. Like, yes, the best for a specific purpose, and it's the best tasting food on average, period, or whatever. But that doesn't mean you have to vary shit because variation in and of itself is a benefit. So if I had to say what's the best bicep, best bicep exercise, I think for the whole population, which means there's tons of exceptions, some people get more out of other exercises, I would say straight bar barbell curls are just really tough to beat. They just fuck you up the most, they grow you the most, but like they're at 100%, and easy curls are at a 99.2, and dumbbell curls with 2 arms are at a 97.3. After 8 weeks of barbell curling, you're down to 95. So it's time to sub some shit in. And so when people say, so why do you prefer this and that? Variation. That's the answer, right? There's one caveat to that. Some exercises have specific reasons that you do them to. What's the advantage? I made sure to try to answer this in such a way that it's not a global advantage, but I said one cool thing you can do in a Smith machine is you can put your feet into really weird positions relative to the bar because gravity straight up won't allow you to do that with a barbell. And someone asked a very related question, do you like the angled Smith better or the straight Smith better? It's a detail that's almost completely irrelevant, but I said angled because straight you can just do with a fucking barbell. What the hell do you need a Smith machine for? But you can't squat a fucking angle in real life, so that allows you to put your feet forward, it allows you to really hit your quads. Is that better? Well, I think it's a 97 with barbell. That novelty of stimulus is going to be an advantage.
No,
what do you think? Did I miss anything on that?
No, I really think the analogy is good because I can even relate that to something like pizza, my favorite food. After a while,
count me in.
You kind of don't. If you remove it, even if say you go for a cutting phase, you can't have pizza. And then when you get back to it, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
I could eat this every day.
Yeah. So it's the same. And I find myself with exercises, like if I remove them for a period of time, they then become much more attractive again. You kind of get bored of them to an extent. They become stale. So you kind of have that novelty come in. And I think something, and the visualization that has to be kind of happening on an individual level, obviously, but people will take that as like a broad principle, apply it to themselves too far.
So let's talk about that. That's something I didn't cover. So when people say, so can we see your whole program? And people say, what kind of split do you do? Every now and again, when I'm being an asshole, or just like curmudgeon-y or something like that, I'll be a little bit of a troll and I'll say, why? And the correct answer, so to speak, is I want to see illustration of the principles in action. Great answer. Like I want to look at your workout and say, there's overload. That's fatigue management. But some people want to see other people's routines simply because they fetishize the bodybuilding lifestyle and size, which we all do. It's really cool, but I just, at some point, it's just straight up just being a fan. And being a fan for the sake of being a fan is awesome. Being a fan for the sake of verbatim copying shit, thinking you're going to be like that person, is nonsense. Like, I've had people copy my protraction at the top of dumbbell presses. I protract my shoulders, and people are like, well, Dr. Mike does it. Like, I do it because my pecs are fucked up. Like, I have so much scar tissue in them or something that I don't recommend that to people. I think it's needlessly destabilizing the shoulder joint. You can lift less weight. You're going to get hurt more often, and it actually decreases pec activation, which is why I'm doing it. So when you look at my particular routine, it's also adjusted to my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice, which fucks me up in 50 different ways. And I've got all these quirks, and body proportions are all strange, and so do all of us. So when you're looking at someone's routine, like, well, what's your program? You're not going to learn that much. So when people ask me that question, I almost want to say, I'd much rather you just ask me what your program should look like, because then I can guide you to some extent, as opposed to like, well, what's your program? Well, fuck, you're not me, you know? And I mean that in all the best ways. You could probably benefit from a better program than me, because I have so many limitations at this point. So,
and I guess, well, now you're going to get...
You heard it here first.
And I guess I can really relate this, and I think the viewers will be able to like, when people ask you what your macros are, or something like that.
Isn't that baffling? Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. The question to ask would be, why are they? What are they? Why? That might be something that can be helpful. Like, Mike, you're doing this. Why? Because then you can explain it. You can give your reasonings behind it, and that's actually helpful. Because then maybe it does relate to their situation. But I mean, a lot of the time, it's not going to. And I think you've spoken about it before. Like, the people will see these big, like, jack bodybuilders doing like partial range of motion, so then they think that's a really good thing to do. But a lot of the time they're beat the hell up, so they have to, or they have to do isolation work.
Can't lock out, my elbows are fucked. Can't stretch, my pecs are fucked. There you go.
So I think that's really important to take into account. Is there anything else within kind of want to get into and kind of develop that in kind of? I think a lot of people just get a bit lost with kind of, they don't know how to apply the broad principles sometimes. And they want kind of clarification, and that's why they drive for the specific example. For sure.
And that's a very important thing to do. I think if you don't understand how the big picture is to be applied, I think it's a really good idea to ask about examples and see how they unfold. What you don't want to do is, instead of taking and understanding the principles, is to try to think that there are magic exercises, magic sets and reps, magic progressions, and sequences of exercises, and that's what's doing the stuff. Like when bodybuilders will demonstrate an exercise and say, I really feel like this hits my this and that. The first thing I think was like, oh, whatever, like, how many sets of back do you do a week? Next question, how do you split it up? Next question, what's your progression like week to week? Last question, what do you feel are the best exercises? There's some people say, like, oh, you know, another comment I get a lot is, oh, so I see you do your pull-ups with an overhand grip. Okay, yes. I prefer to do mine with an underhand. What do you think about that? I don't feel them. They are. It's mechanically impossible for them not to. And then we get, again, into that whole variation thing of, like, well, which one's better? Well, there's no better. Like, yes, I think overhand probably just a little bit better for your lats. Underhand a little bit worse. For the first 4 weeks, and then after that they're equivalent, and after 12 weeks, whatever you haven't been doing, it's what's better for you at that point, right?
Yeah.
Deletion and replacement. So a lot of people, when they look at, when you give them an example program, for lack of a better word, I'm overusing this, they'll fetishize parts of it, and they won't derive principles from it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a really nasty thing where you almost don't want to share your program with people, because then they're going to be like, okay, well, I put in this exercise that you like that's going to grow my back. There's no fucking exercise that's going to grow your back. There's like 5 or 6 of really good ones for rows and 5 or 6 really good ones for vertical pull. And there's probably 2 or 3 that you and I have never heard of, never done, that are like really good variants. And people a lot of times ask me what I think of like Meadows rows.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like them. I don't feel shit from them. But John Meadows sure as hell does. And a bunch of people have told me they feel, to them, even better than back rows. Fucking hit it up. do it up. And they're like, but what do you think? Like, it's a compound movement you can generate high forces on through a full range of motion. We're done. That's old curmudgeon Eastern European coach. Like, no, I have all the exercise. This is bullshit. This doesn't make you strong. Like, I have that mysticism. Maybe I don't know enough. The fucking secrets. Like, what if you turn your pinkies like this? I don't know. People ask me, like, I'll do lateral raise videos, and they're like, why do you turn your pinkies like this instead of like that? And I'm like, I have not given it that much thought. I'm just trying to hit PRs with good technique, and I don't know, fucking pinkies, Jesus Christ. Like, so, you know, to think that that's what's going to make you, you know, the biggest bodybuilder of all time is you just doing this, right? So with these little details, and these details are important for you and you alone to figure out.
Yeah.
And every now and again, you can stumble on a cool exercise that a bodybuilder is doing that you can try and it works great, but you have to try it. And probably at least 5 times out of 10, you're going to try it. It's not going to feel like it. There's nothing magical about it. Like some guys are like, oh my God, I feel such great lat activation from this. I tried it and I'm like, don't feel like anything. I tried for a whole metacycle. I'm like, man, it's a total waste of time. It's a waste of metacycle. So it's up to you to figure out the specifics. What is really important is to learn the general principles, because like when someone's like, one thing I get every now and again, I don't do this much anymore, but I'll critique a program for someone, and they'll send me their weekly split. I'm like, okay, that's nice. Now, let me see your progression. They're like, what do you mean? Like, what are you going to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and how are you going to cut off week 5 to week 6 for deload, or when are you going to deload? And they're like, oh, I haven't really given that many thought. And I'm like, that's kind of important. Right, exactly. So it's one of those things like, you got 1 week of your program looks just fine. And another question I always get is like, you know, they have certain sets and reps, and I'm like, how much is this for you? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, are you familiar with the volume landmarks, like MV, MEVA, MAV, MRV? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, so where is this? And they're like, well, it's just about MRV. I'm like, this is week 1? And they're like, yeah, like, don't do that. A bullet point question, like, are you choosing mostly compound heavy basics? Are you attending the right things with isolation? Are you choosing exercises that are not biomechanically don't have like injury impedance for you? And are you making sure to heal on time between sessions? Is your workout frequency, anywhere between 2 and 4 sessions per week, per overload sessions per body part, and with some exceptions, but generally in that range, slowly progressing towards your MRV and then deloading? If the answer to this is all yes, I really don't fucking need to see anything more. Like, but what do you think about this versus that? I don't know, maybe work better for you than for me. I'm done arguing specific exercises. Like, I taught a seminar for you just recently for Revive Stronger, and it went super well, and to show some exercises, and I kept saying, like, this is just how I do shit. It works pretty well for me. I think it's pretty sound. Some of you might have to modify this. I just, like, it's not defensible for me to be like, this is the only way to do this and that, because this is not true. So if you can derive principles and then have a couple of different guides to how to build your workouts, and the rest is just creativity and fun. That's when you go and choose movements you like to do. And I'm not going to be like, oh, dumbbell presses like this, you're an idiot. Like, you should just do them like this. Like, fuck. Like, anyone who tells you that is just more or less making shit up, I think.
This is, I've just got a good comparison. Again, I think people, as soon as I say this, they completely understand what we're talking about, in that it's like having, if it fits your macros, and someone coming to you and does it fit your macros like it used to be? And it's like, well, if it hits your macros, it's kind of 80% wholesome, good, homemade food, 20% not, then it's like, well, I don't need to see your meal plan. It's good to go. Kind of the same with training. If you hit these principles, you hit these important things, you're
I'll
good
take
to
that
go.
analogy a bit further. So let's say we could nail down that some foods, their like glycemic alignment, the exact composition of the carbohydrates and the grains, the exact optimal ratios of amino acids, that you could in fact develop for one person, or for the average, an almost perfect diet. 2 things that diet doesn't consider. One is it doesn't consider the fact that you're not going to eat the same fucking foods every day. That's insanity. You will go nuts and develop vitamin and mineral deficiencies because they hit some more than others. So you have to have a natural rotation anyway, just like exercise variation. Second of all, forget preference in psychology. That's important, but we know it's important. Let's say we just want to be a machine. People get different absorption rates and different reactions of their gut of them for meal 6. And be like, every time I eat them, I feel like a little vomity. I feel like they're slowing me down. The digestion isn't happening. And then my next meal, I just feel like it piles on top. And you're like, oh, you just have to eat those crackers. That's it. It's like, well, can't I use the rice version of that cracker, which is almost completely identical? It's a little higher glycemic, but it runs right through me and it's great, and I'm ready for my next meal? Nope. You fucking kidding me? Like, really? So it just obviates that variation altogether. And a lot of times bodybuilders, like the pro bodybuilders, you see them post foods, and they'll say, I've switched to red potatoes this prep and it's working really well. And some guy will be like, why red potatoes? And the body will be like, they don't make me feel sick, and I can eat 150 grams of them every 2 hours or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay. That's not what they were looking for. Yeah. But yes, individual variation to how foods apply to you. Same thing with exercises. Yeah. What do you really like, dumbbells versus barbells? Some people really do, and some people really don't. But are there bodybuilders who eat no carb? The main principles everyone gets, and that fundamental, mostly whole food everyone gets. And after that, man, it's up to you to figure out what works best for you. And another thing that really, I guess is very related, some people really like to tell other people what works for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's cool, but if you're a celebrity or some super hotshot trainer, I guess it's just, I take that back, it's just as useless.
Yeah.
But if you're not, it's almost it's the audacity of the ego. Well, I like this exercise. All right, mm-hmm. Who cares? I say I like this exercise, and every time I post that, I feel guilty about it because I know people are going to go, oh, that's the best exercise. This one I like, give it a shot. Yeah, yeah. When I say give it a shot, don't try it in one microcycle. Try it for a mesocycle. Mm-hmm. Once you really get in the groove of the technique. So
it's the same with diet and training. People are looking for kind of the little secrets, the kind of, they want it easy. They almost want a cookie cutter training program, a meal plan made for them that they know is going to be sort them out. And
cookie cutter, but highly specific cookie.
I do mean, how is this exercise? How am I feeling? They just forget. They just feel oh, I have to squat like this. If I don't, then something's wrong with me. Whereas actually, it could be they need to just vary it. They don't learn how to auto-regulate for themselves. They think about rigid numbers. It's really hard because there is no perfect kind of set and rep scheme. There's, like you said, the broad principles, then you go through them. It's people find maybe they do better on slightly higher carbs, slightly lower fats. They have to find that out for themselves. And the same with fiber. Can they consume a lot? Can they not have a lot? I think it's really interesting. People, they end up actually hurting themselves because they're really trying to find this magic thing which doesn't kind of happen. They forget to relate things to their own body.
Yeah, and they presume, on their way to doing that, they presume a level of intimacy of knowledge on the coach's behalf that just doesn't exist in real life. Tell me what's good for my body. A lot of times I'd see people send me programs and be like, do you think this will work? And I say, you'd have to be my client for 6 months for me to figure that out.
All the time.
And they're like, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't take clients anymore. But that's one of the beauties of a true coach-client relationship, coach-athlete relationship, is that you get the fruits of that kind of development where a coach really learns you, mm-hmm. and you learn their style, and then you start really knowing how to program for stuff. I programmed for a long time for a powerlifter named Jake Welch, and he's on RP Clients Group. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. He's a really scary-looking person. He works on an oil rig. Manliest person of all time. And Jake and I worked together for several years, and by the end of that time that I worked with him, we hit PRs all the time. It was great. It was a great relationship. I would send him a peaking program, and he wouldn't even ask any questions. He'd be like, yep.
Nice.
And I'd be like, so on that last deadlift, kind of, plus or minus 20 kilos, the rest is all you. And he's like, exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
We picked the exercises that we knew worked for him. It was never hack squats. It was always leg press, that kind of thing. Wide grip bench I really liked. Dumbbell work, meh. We had figured out everything. It took at least a year for us to nail down a really smooth coaching relationship of knowing how his progressions react, his MEV. It took us a year to find his MV, MEV, MAV, MRV. Fucking year for all those numbers. And people message me and are like, what's my particular MEV? I'm like, fuck would I know that? Yeah. Learn the principles.
Yeah.
And a coach can give you some cool ideas, mm-hmm. other than principles, if you're going to a seminar asking questions online. If you want nitty-gritty particulars, there's 2 ways to go about it. Find out yourself over long-term experimentation, and or hire a coach for the long term, mm-hmm. so that you two together on a journey can figure out what is best for you. A 3D muscle journey, perhaps. Just wanted to use that term.
Plug in our actually friends,
our friends and associates, free
plugging other people. And yeah, I think I was actually going to bring up that note about the coach, in that if you are struggling with it, I've actually found having clients who are coaches themselves, they're a bit maybe lost, having that coach-client relationship so they can feed back to you has really helped. But yeah, I think we'll call that one a wrap.
Yep, that's pretty good. I think we're good.